Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Ted Bank, and I'm just hanging around.
You're hanging around?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I'm just hanging around the show today.
Hanging around the show.
You know, so it's it's going to be a good show, I think. And I think today a lot of themes and cards we're talking about are just going to come full circle around the bend, around to each other.
Oh,
yeah. That's
like
what
the
I
card,
think.
like the card "Hold Your Gur" round.
Yes. It's similar to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of units, so it's going to be good. It's going to be a good show.
Before we get talking about, she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes here. Let's just talk how you guys can stay connected with the Card Talk community. We have the blog over at cardtalk2018.com. We review the card pool one card at a time. Matt over there keeps up with what we do here at the pod. Most of the time he's right. Every once in a while he's wrong. I'm still bitter about the Dying Ironfoot review, that he gave it a 3, and Matt, he's still the best defender in the game. I think you're just Baragont crazy. And then we have Micah, who does Second Breakfast every other week or so. He publishes on our YouTube channel a playthrough. He has deck restrictions and deck review. He builds decks with certain restrictions, and he plays a couple scenarios, and he has fun with that. And then we have a Patreon, so if you want to support us, it's a little late for our swag this year. It's in full production right now, but still, if you want to support the show, you want us to know that you're out there, feel free to join us at patreon.com/cardtalk2018. And Ted, let me shield my eyes while I have you read the card that we're talking about today.
Okay. Today's card is Round Shield.
Oh, okay.
I know you didn't really see that one coming. It is a tactics attachment that cost 0. Yes, that's right. 0. It says something. No, I had the card and then I lost it. I'm going to go off memory. Attached to a character.
So far, so good. Restricted. Yes, good.
Response.
Yes.
It's got the keyword item and armor.
Yeah.
And it's got the response. After a shadow card is revealed during this attack, exhaust Round Shield and give the defender +2 defense. Something like that. I'm pretty close.
Yeah, except it's never when a shadow card is revealed, because shadow cards aren't revealed. It's when a shadow effect is triggered.
Oh, shadow effect is triggered.
Right.
Of course it is.
But yes. So Ted, as the resident card expert in the community at Card Talk here, the Card Talk community expert, I don't know, whatever. Go ahead. What do you think of this card?
Say words about. It's great.
Yeah,
it's super great. With a 0 cost card, it tends to be, what are the expectations, right? It's like, well, it can't be a lot because it doesn't cost you anything. However, this card, great, so good, so good for 0. Yeah, so it goes on a character, first of all, so it doesn't have to be a hero, which there are quite a few good defending allies in the game, or ones that could benefit from items being attached to them. It's restricted, which is very reasonable for what it does, and it gives you +2 defense whenever you get a shadow card. And the +2 defense comes upon, it doesn't matter what the shadow effect is. So if the shadow effect triggered is raise the defending player's threat by 1, great, your threat goes up by 1, and now your character gets +2 defense. So it's especially helpful against unplanned attack bonuses.
Right.
The shadow
which
card
is a significant chunk of shadow effects.
Yeah.
To clarify, like there's a ton of shadow effects. It's like +1, or +2, or even +3. I think even Ungoliant Spawn is like, I don't know, some sort of crazy. Anyways, but yeah,
there's a lot of swing in this game, especially in some of the earlier quests where it's like, if attached enemy is a goblin, give it +3 attack. It's like, what the heck? Like, you went from 3 attack to 6. This as 100% increase to your attack, it doubled it. Like, it's crazy. So this card gives you very nice protection against that, to take less damage. In some cases, you might even be like, I've had a hero with 3 defense defend against a 4 strength attack, and then the shadow effect that's triggered is something like I said, like player must discard a card from their hand, and I'm like, great, I'll get +2 defense, and now where I was taking 1 damage, I take no damage because my defense went up by 2. So those are great moments, and if I ever have to discard an attachment from a treachery effect or from a shadow card, I never mind losing this card because I paid nothing for it. I paid 0. And even if the shadow effect is defending player discards an attachment, you can. That's an interesting question. Can I trigger that? I feel like in the past I've triggered it, but that might actually be wrong because the shadow card, I think, gets resolved immediately. That is my hunch.
Yeah. Well, you can't do anything backwards in this game. When you're playing Magic, things happen, like a response happens and undoes the thing you just did. Yeah. But here, like, you have to do the thing.
It resolve its effect immediately. So if you chose to discard that attachment, you could not trigger it.
It's already discarded. It. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's after the shadow effect is triggered.
Correct. And I wonder if I did that once, but
now the other question is, can you cancel the shadow effect and still get the, like, can you use Hasty Stroke to cancel the shadow effect and then still get the?
You 100% can, because the shadow effect was still triggered, and Hasty Stroke, or really,
like Balin, Erkenbrand, like.
Yeah, it might depend on the effect itself. So we'll take Hasty Stroke because that's kind of like the
it's the general use case.
The general use one, yeah. So it says cancel a shadow effect just triggered during combat. So by that response, it has to trigger for you. It has to exist for it to be canceled. Right. So it has to trigger. You trigger your responses.
Right.
You trigger the round shield, and then you cancel the effect, and then you still get the bonus.
Right.
I want to say with Balin, it's going to be the same thing, because I think Hero Balin.
Does he get rid of the card? Like before it's, I don't know. I forget.
Yeah. So we're talking about other cards that interact with shadow cards, which is really great to think about with this card because of its exact purpose. So Hero Balin says, response, pay 1 resource from Balin's resource pool to cancel a shadow effect, again, just triggered during combat.
So it's worded very similarly to Hasty Stroke.
Yep. Okay. And the last one that you mentioned is
Erkenbrand.
Erkenbrand, who's another hero who
deal 1 damage to Erkenbrand to cancel a shadow effect just triggered.
Just triggered.
Is that what it says?
Yeah.
I'm not looking up Erkenbrand.
Oh, I thought you were looking at it.
No. I just like if it says just triggered.
I have a feeling because so far all these effects say deal 1 damage to Erkenbrand to cancel a shadow effect. Exactly, just triggered. That's exactly what he says.
Right.
So I would rule that, because it has to trigger, and you're triggering these responses to cancel it are the same responses as getting +2 defense to it being revealed. Whether it's canceled or not is kind of irrelevant.
Well, since they're responses, you can just like trigger the round shield and then cancel the
right. And even
thing.
if you did it in the other order, I think it would still technically be right because it doesn't matter because the responses are off it being triggered.
Right.
So they're two independent effects off of the same trigger.
Right.
So if you're looking for two heroes that are
that was
very
an
great for
oddly
round
long.
shield,
It's an oddly long conversation for but there's a lot of rules, subtleties that can come up in just general play.
The other big one is gonna be Burning Brand. That is gonna probably say the exact same thing, but I'm gonna look it up because those are the other. It's another very common card. Response, exhaust Burning Brand to cancel Shadow Effect, just triggered. Yep, they all have the exact same wording on them. So those are really, really great cards to play. Maybe not necessarily with Burning Brand because you are already canceling it, but the other ones certainly, like Balin could be the same case. You get a shadow card and you're like, okay, I'm going to boost my defense and then I'm going to throw it away and get a new card. And then that new card could be nothing. So you just kind of net the defense boost.
Right.
If it's something you needed. Same thing with Erkenbrand. Super great way to control damage on him because he's taking damage for his ability. And you want to have him not take damage from attacks.
Right. So this is like Jubire put a great target for round shield, right? Because Jubire,
well, I think he actually
he discards shadow cards on other people. So Jubire is a good defender, and so if you have, so you can. But I guess Jubire can also discard the shadow effect on, or the shadow card.
I think he discards it before it's triggered. Because there's a couple of cards that discard a shadow effect while it's face down before it's triggered, and in those Dawn Take You All comes to mind. It discards it face down. Jubire is after Jubire exhausts to defend an attack, discard one face down shadow card from a non-unique enemy. Limit once per phase. So he doesn't work off the trigger
specifically off of round shield.
Yeah,
he just works generally.
Yep.
But I was just thinking that he's the guy that you want to give the defense bonus to, and it's harder to get defense bonuses onto allies than it is onto heroes.
It's true. You could
adopt.
That's a good strategy.
It's not like it doesn't work with his ability, but it works with who he is. Right?
Yes. It's still absolutely
because he's a 3 defense ally, and if you'll be defending with him, and at least, you have the ability to defend for more if a shadow effect trigger. Yeah.
So those are some really great things that I actually didn't initially think of, Dave. So thank you. Thank you for bringing those up.
I mean, there's the 3 Hunters contract.
Oh, my God. 3 Hunters contract, Dave.
That's the low hanging fruit, where, zero cost and restricted.
Play 3 of these if you're playing.
The round shield triggers the war axe, for each restricted attachment you get, there's this is good for its zero cost restricted as much as it's good for its response. You know what I mean? There's just.
Another great deck archetype this fits into is Dale. The Dale archetype wants to put attachments on characters.
Right.
So you have Brand, which then when you play it, you get to draw a card, and which is crazy because it costs 0. When you play it on like a Dale ally or some Dale character or something like that. Maybe that's just the willpower boost. And then, what is it? Brand, I want to say.
I always screw up.
I think it's Bard. Bard, son of Brand.
Yeah. If he's only the names in this game weren't so confusing. Thranduil, Thardir, Thurindir.
Finfindar.
Yeah.
Arfidel.
Right.
Bard Sum of Brand is a spirit hero who lets you play, when playing an item attachment, he's considered to have the printed icons of leadership, lore, and tactics, and then he's printed spirit. So he lets you play this card. Just you could have a mono spirit deck and be like, I'm going to put in round shields, which is a very good idea.
Right.
And super fun to do with him. And then when a character leaves play, he returns attachments to its owner's hands. So this card's great for that because you will just, if the character does,
You don't lose it.
yeah, you don't lose it. And it is, it's Brand, Son of Bane. I'll look him up too, just so I clarify the bonuses on him. But even in just here, okay, Brand, Son of Bane, leadership. Each Dale character you control gets +1 willpower with a player attachment. So this will just give you +1 willpower in a Dale deck. And then after you play an attachment, on a Dale character without an attachment, draw a card. So like in a Dale deck for 0, you get to draw a card and give somebody +1 willpower. Like,
right.
Seems okay.
Right. Seems even better than just the situational defense
but
bonus.
Even if you're like, I'm going to play a mono tactics deck, I'm playing multiplayer. Like I'm going to play Baragon and I'm going to play
Baragon, Beorn,
Hama, whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's still great to put in like 2 copies of this card because even on Baragon, it's like Baragon, yes, can play other items at a reduced cost, but still, like, what if you don't get those items? Like this card still, and he can have 2 restricted items anyway. Spirit Baragon, fantastic to help him just not take damage from shadow cards. Like anybody who's defending,
right? And that's what I was going to say is that, like a lot of people play Tactics Baragon and then put the Gondorian Shield, your favorite card, onto Tactics Baragon, and he's a powerhouse at defending for 6 and doing all these crazy things, right? But what if you don't draw into that? What if your 3 copies are invariably in, card 48, 49, 50 in your deck, and you're like, in your top decking, and you're just not getting your, you need another solution, right? And typically the best solutions are those that can be used in a lot of different places. So if you don't get the Gondorian Shield out and you have 2 or 3 copies of Round Shield in there, that doubles the opportunity for Baragon to get a defense. And if you already have the Gondorian Shield on Baragon, you can put this on a secondary defender and you're still doing all right. And if you have 2 round shields on Baragon, it's not restricted. It's restricted, but it's not limited to 1 per hero.
It's not.
Like you can put 2 of them on Baragon, and if he has a shadow effect, he can defend for 8.
It's
anybody.
I forgot about the whole double wielding round shields, right? Because you can have 2. Or more. If you're playing a golden belt, I guess you could have all 3 copies on a single character.
Right.
And they would all trick if you had multiples, if you had 2 or up to 3 because of 3 hunters or golden belts, they would all trigger off the same thing. So if you revealed it, you're like, I'm going to trigger both round shields and get +4, or all 3 and get +6. Yeah. It's entirely
or you could
possible.
defend multiple times, and you can use 1 for the first attack, 1 for the second attack, 1 for the third attack.
Right. If you don't need
put
bonus,
this on Dine. It's like, okay, here we go. Let's do this.
Even on Dine, right? If you are, if your deck is not designed to, you don't want to be milling cards all the time, because you're not playing that like dwarven delving archetype. This could be like, oh, Shadow Effect, great. I'll get +2, and then I'll have to trigger 1 card. Or now you do his ability, and now he defends for 8, right? Like, that's like dragon strength. A lot of dragons have 6, 7, 8 attack in this game sometimes.
Right. Smog comes out, and he's like, "Yeah, get away from me."
it's like, So a couple other great pairings with this card, believe it or not, is I would actually say Dark Knowledge from Lore. Dark Knowledge is the core set card where you get to exhaust and look at a face down shadow card, and that lets you strategically pick defenders. So if you're like, okay, I don't see a shadow card, like you look at a shadow card and there is no trigger on it, you're like, okay, I'll defend with someone that doesn't have a round shield, right? Which will then increase the odds of your round shield triggering on a different defense. So there's kind of, I'd say, strategy deck of like shadow card control that I've played before
Mm-hmm.
that involves Round Shield and Don't Take You All, Burning
Silver Lamp.
Brand, Silver. Holy smokes, this card in Silver Lamp. Thank you. Is also
Yeah, I
part of
mean,
that deck.
that's,
Silver
yeah,
Lamp also just reveals shadow cards dealt to you.
right.
Just all the time
Now,
if your spirit hero is ready.
there, you have to be careful because sometimes you get to discard face down shadow cards. As like, there's some cards that are like discard a face down shadow card,
Right.
as
That's like
opposed to
Dawn
a
Take You All,
silver,
for
like
example.
Silver Lamp turns them all up, and then you can see them all. Now they're all face up shadow cards, and so those things you can't discard,
Yeah. And
right?
I would
But
say I like Silver Lamp was one of my favorite cards in the entire game.
I know,
It also kind of takes it's so good, it kind of takes some of the like right there's two
yeah,
really unknowns in the game, right? You don't know what encounter cards you're flipping up, and you don't know what shadow cards you're flipping up.
right,
And Silver Lamp's like, how about you do know those things?
right, right,
Half of them.
right.
Um, so you can get you guarantee you'll know if you're going to need to trigger it.
And then you put Shadow of the Past in your deck, and then for 2 you can take the shadow effect that you want and put it back on the top of the deck, for the next time you're doing, like, not that you can do that in the same, maybe that's not as, it's a little trickier to
To
work
do,
around,
but
but
possible. No, that
like,
fits into that strategy.
if a card makes an additional additional attack, or makes an attack at the end of the round, or like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, there's like,
It's still an armor too, so you can fish this out with Open the Armory,
yeah,
which lets you search the top 10 cards of your deck. You can trigger it for Sterner Than Steel, which lets you cancel a shadow effect. Now, Sterner Than Steel causes you to exhaust a weapon or armor. So if you played Sterner Than Steel, you could not trigger the bonus off of this card if it's the only
right,
shield or item you have. But there could be an instance where the shadow effect is not damage, and canceling it is better than the +2 defense. If it's something like raise your threat by 3 and you're at 47 threat, you might want to cancel that to not lose.
right,
So there's obviously you want to trigger you want another item to exhaust that isn't round shield, but still it can do it if that's the only armor you have equipped
right.
at the time. So very flexible card. The fact that it's 0 is fantastic. And that's what really brings the value to this card, is that it's free. And like I said, I've pitched it plenty of times. I'm like, meh, I played it 3 turns. It gave me a bonus, and then I lost it. And I'm like, all right, it did its job for a while. I'd say maybe the worst place for this card is like maybe Burglar Turn, because it costs 0 and you can get other higher costing items for
Right.
free. But it's still not like, I wouldn't, if that happened, if this came up, I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't criticize them
Yeah.
for it. I'd be like, cool, round shield.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
that's the thing of this card. Yeah, a lot. And again, there's gonna be a bunch of things we didn't note or mention. But hopefully it sort of got the wheels turning. You certainly did for me. I didn't even think about like Balin wasn't really in my wheelhouse, even though he's part of that shadow control
Right.
strategy, and he can work fantastic with this card. So there's just a lot of ways to go about it. So yeah.
Yeah. What about the art, Ted?
Well, the art depicts a shield that is round. I think it's very colorful, well drawn art. I'm getting Tactics Aowen vibe from the picture.
Yeah.
I believe looks like the one who's carrying it. So
Right.
It looks kind of Rohan design in nature, right? They have more of the round design shields.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it looks great.
Yeah. The face on that shield maiden who I can assume is Eowyn. I thought the same thing, but like, that's just it's a very beautiful shield maiden right there. like this is this is a very attractive card, right?
Yes, quite so. In more ways than one. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. It hits on all cylinders. So to
speak. So we said a lot of great things about this card. We've probably again left some things unsaid. There's probably plenty of other use cases for it that we didn't think of, but
right. Yeah, but that's the idea, right? We're just trying to give people an idea. Maybe people just look at this and see a zero cost attachment and they're like, nah, it can't be that good. Right?
Yeah. But it is.
It's really good.
Especially even in the realm of like, compared to one cost cards, like, if this card cost one, the thing is, would I play it? And I don't actually know. Because for 0, the value's there, but for 1, I'm not sure. I think I might then consider a bonus that's more consistent, because even Gondor Shield is just a constant +1, right? That I can guarantee.
Right.
It's
+2 for Gondor.
And +2 for Gondor, even then, right? Even better. So,
right.
And right, if you are playing Baragon, it's of course the Gondorian Shield is just +2 all the time, like you said, but it's just another tool for him to equip, or for anyone else, right? Once he gets his shield, sometimes you can play it on someone else who's going to be defending. But anyway, let's bring it up. Let's sum up all of our thoughts.
Okay. So for anybody who doesn't know or may have maybe new to the show, we have a highly scientific yet no, it's not highly scientific. We have a highly arbitrary yet scientific
it has system. Numbers.
Yeah, it's got numbers and things. 1 is good, 10 is bad. Ted, I'll go first since you went first last time, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. So the round shield, here's the thing, is that I love this attachment. It does all those things that we do, but, again, solo player, and I'm not building decks usually around this sort of thing. I need a defender that can defend everything. And, I know, so I don't know. And I like this card, but I don't it doesn't make it into all of my decks. It's just a card that I'm always looking at. And then if I have to choose, this card or a different card, a lot of times I'll pick this card to not include because, I'm like, well, if I'm defending and I get +2 attack, it's not, I have either other ways to mitigate shadow effects, or the +2 defense isn't going to make a difference. I'm jumping or doing something, it's however much we're singing the praises of this, it still doesn't necessarily do it for me in the way that I build decks, right? Like, a lot of times I'm not looking to attachments to help me mitigate shadow effects. So, I think that, just based on how great this card is for a 300s deck, and, just to help with defense, of course I include this card, but a lot of times in my specialty decks it doesn't make it in. So I would call this, like a 3. It fits into a lot of different decks.
Pretty high.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it's not a 1 for me.
Right.
It's not just a ubiquitous, attachment that just goes anywhere, like a Spirit of Gondor sort of thing. What about you, Ted?
Yeah. So the fact that it is, its bonus is consistent, right? Where it's always a +2, but that trigger is not consistent. So that does make it a little bit less reliable as opposed to something like, right, if I pay 1 for something, or if I pay 2 for like a Raiment of War, I know I get +1 defense and +2 hit points, right? So I can calculate that when defending. So I was actually going to also put it at a 3, because it's still very strong, and it definitely goes into a lot of my Dale decks, and it goes into any 3 Hunters deck that is playing tactics,
Right.
or has access to play items. Like I said, like we named ways to do that. But it's not like 100%. Like you can't be like, right, my sole strategy is to rely on Round Shield. Like that you can't do with this card, which which you can do with a few other cards or a few other heroes, but it's certainly, it helps get you there, and it helps cover some gaps, especially when there's big bonuses sometimes, especially in certain scenarios. So it's a great card. Test it out. Someone's defending, especially if you have the card draw, if you're playing lore, drawing lots of cards. And this is great because you don't need the resources to keep up with it. You can put it into play and then just keep drawing. Like if you're playing like Air Store, it's great because the more free cards you have, the better, because you're drawing 4 a turn and then discarding them. So get it into play, test it out.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Wise words from our guru, Ted Bannock. So everybody, join us next week as we try to inspire more deck building and more ways to use cards and more options than you can shake a stick at. So have a great week, everybody.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.